meeting. It was a joint, obviously, Council and Housing Authority meeting, followed by a special meeting of the Glendale City Council, which we will now call to order.
Okay. Council members Asatian?
Here.
Brotman?
Here.
Divine?
Here.
Najarian?
Here.
Mayor Kasakian?
Here, may we please have your report?
The agenda for the Tuesday, September 27, 2022 special public meeting of the City Council was posted on September 22nd, 2022 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
All right, we have a number of items on this special meeting agenda, 5 total. May we have the first item read into the record, please?
Yes, first item is management services regarding professional services agreements with Rinkin Consultants, Inc. for the development of a climate action and adaptation plan for the city of Glendale. A motion authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute an 18-month professional services agreement with Rinkin to develop a qualified CAAP for the City of Glendale for a total not to exceed amount of $320,000.
All right, thank you. Mr. Galanian.
Yes, good afternoon. Mayor Kasakian, member City Council. Staff has concluded the process of the RFP for the selection of a consultant, which is an important next step in helping us develop the City of Glendale's Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. I'll turn it over to David Jones, our Sustainability Officer, to present the report to you. I do believe that representatives from the consulting firm are also in attendance in case you have questions. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Galanian. Good afternoon, City Council and Mayor Kasakian. So, as the City Manager mentioned, we're here today to go over the staff report to recommend selecting a consultant for the development of our climate action and adaptation plan. One usually ends a presentation with thank you, but I think I'd like to begin this presentation with thank you. We would not be sitting here today having this conversation if City Council had not given the support and awarded the funds for us to be able to go out and hire a consultant to begin to engage on this path to develop a climate and action and adaptation plan. So I really appreciate the City Council's support, and I just want to thank the City Council for that. So what have we asked for a consultant to do as we develop this climate action adaptation plan? We issued an RFP, and quite a long RFP and quite a technical RFP, a request for proposal. And within that, we asked the consultant to undertake a number of tasks for us. First of all was to develop our current greenhouse gas inventory and also look at our previous greenhouse gas inventories and do analysis on the previous ones and identify how we're currently performing. We're also very interested in finding a consultant that would bring innovation to developing a climate action and adaptation plan. We wanted a consultant that had done work in this area before and had expressed and had undertaken some innovative initiatives with prior climate action adaptation plans. We also asked a consultant to develop a pathway to develop an emissions neutral city by 2045 or sooner. So that is setting out fairly aggressive goals for 2030 and 2045 to reduce our emissions within the city. We wanted the consultant to understand what the particular climate challenges were in Glendale, or are in Glendale rather, and then establish some opportunities to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and establish mitigation plans too. We want a consultant to establish cohesive sustainability strategies and implementation plans, and most importantly, to establish metrics so we can monitor and measure our performance as we go forward implementing this climate action and adaptation plan. It's very important that the consultant had knowledge of CEQA so they could prepare a qualified climate action adaptation plan that may be used for future tiering and project streamlining as we go forward. And we also wanted the consultant to understand resilience, that is, complete a climate vulnerability assessment for the City of Glendale. And this is important because this helps us meet SB 379 requirements to integrate climate adaptation strategies into our general plan through the safety element. And finally, we really wanted to find a consultant who would work with us to really engage our community, reach out to the community, and show us some innovative ways of doing that. So that being said, we wrote all of that, or tried to write all of that into the RFP. The RFP, the request for proposal, was issued May 9th this year. We gave organizations roughly 7 weeks to respond to that request for proposal. We sent it out and identified 13 organizations that we could send this out to. We also had it on the city's website, so other organizations may want to come in and find it. Of those 13 organizations, 9 responded. We established an internal review committee to go over all those responses. Of the 9, we recommended 3 for interview. So we interviewed those 3 consultants. And based on those interview process, we made a final selection. So what were the criteria? How do we decide to select these consultants? So the first thing was their experience in sustainability-related projects or plans, general plan development, climate action plan development, carbon neutrality, and community engagement. As you can see, Rincon Consultants scored very high within this first set of criteria. We also wanted to make sure that the consultants really understood the project scope of work and how they did that through their RFP response. We also wanted to understand the qualifications of the project team who would be working on this climate action and adaptation plan with city personnel and what their experience was in developing those plans. We also took into account value and cost efficiency of the plan, and very much also took into account flexibility, creativity, and innovation. And then finally, the response of the RFPs to conform to the city's contractual template. As mentioned, we had 9 respondents. 3 were pretty close, Rincon Consultants, Sustainability Solutions Group, and ICF. And then we had a little bit of a fall away after that. So the review committee interviewed Rincon, Sustainability Solutions Group, and ICF. So why did we think that Rincon was the most appropriate consultant to help us in this climate action and adaptation plan? First of all, is the organizations in the other cities that they have worked with to develop their plans, including the city of Burbank, Berkeley, Beverly Hills, Pasadena, and South Pasadena. And in fact, Rincon has developed over 45 climate action and adaptation plans within California. They have 10 years experience in developing these CAPs. They presented us a really impressive stakeholder engagement process, which we feel will allow us to reach out to and connect with all the communities within the city of Glendale. They have extensive greenhouse gas analysis experience and expertise within that field. And they have a very deep and experienced knowledge of CEQA. And I believe that the firm actually began undertaking CEQA projects initially. Also, Rincon Consultants has undertaken 20+ vulnerability assessments to help cities with their general plan updates through their safety elements. And then finally, what they presented within the RFP response was really innovative scenarios of how they're going about planning for greenhouse gas reductions and mitigation strategies. And then finally, when we were writing the RFP, we really wanted to make sure that what was presented to the public going forward would be very much, be very easy to read, very easy to understand. And then Rincon came back to us some really quite innovative solutions on developing climate action dashboards, where we could visualize what the city's trying to do, visualize how the city is undertaking its climate action and adaptation process, and visualize how well the city is performing. So with all these positives, we felt that Rincon was the correct firm to help us in this very important project. The Rincon key team, the project manager is Hannah Mize. Hannah is with us today. Rima Chakra, is the CEQA specialist with Team Rincon. And Ryan Gardner and Eric Feldman are also key members of the team. Ryan and Eric unfortunately can't be with us today. And Hannah and Rima, as I said, are here to respond to any questions, any concerns, to talk to them about their experience in developing CAPs. So we have three alternatives for you. The first one, to authorize the city manager or his designee to execute an 18-month professional service agreement with Rincon for the development of the CAP, as recommended herein. Alternative 2 is not to authorize the execution of the contract requested herein. And alternative 3 is to consider any other alternative not proposed by staff. And with that, we're able to answer any questions on the RFP, the selection process, or the response provided by Rincon in response to our RFP.
All right. Questions?
I just have one question. On the, if I may, on the criteria for selection page, and Rincon was number 1. However, ICF was 84 points, Echo Shift was 85. Why are they ranked opposite of those numbers?
That's my fault. Apologies.
Is that a
ICF is supposed
typo?
to be 85, and EcoShift is supposed to be 84.
Oh, okay,
So.
okay, thank you very much. I'll just finish with my comments, if that's okay, Mayor.
Yes, please.
First of all, are we going to hear from Hannah and,
If you'd like to, yeah. If you'd like to introduce Rincon and your experience.
okay.
Yes,
Why don't
please
we do
approach the
that
podium.
now? Yeah.
Hello, I'm Hannah Mize. I'm the project manager for this. I've been working at Rincon for 8 years on the climate action plans. As mentioned, we've done all sorts of projects in the area. I oversaw Burbank and South Pasadena, also assisted with the city of Pasadena, and working on a few others in the region and across the state. And then I have Rima as well. She is an expert in adaptation and CEQA both. So happy to do a full introduction here.
Hi, Rima Chakra. I'm a climate adaptation program manager with Rincon Consultants. I'm currently managing the City of Beverly Hills Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, and I've been working on several safety element updates throughout the state as the housing cycle triggers all the safety element updates. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any other? Okay, Councilmember Brotman?
Well, I'm sorry,
No,
Councilmember Drummond.
no, go ahead.
Okay.
Question,
I thought you had
just had
comments.
one question. Go
Oh,
ahead.
well,
I'll
let
do
me,
it
let
later.
me,
Do it
are you
later.
sure? Okay, Councilmember Brotman, then we'll go back to Councilmember Devine.
Okay, I have a question. I think I know the answer to it, but I just want to make sure it's out. So, I spoke to Gary Giroux, who you might know, has stepped down, but was the sustainability director for the County of Los Angeles. Anyway, what he said is, he said that one of the key issues for us going forward will be whether we want this amended into our general plan. And the way he describes it is that would give us the advantage of project streamlining in the future, would ensure it's enforceable. But he said if you do that, the plan will require a much higher level of legal scrutiny, and it will need to have its own EIR. So I just want to make sure, and I think, again, I know the answer, so I want to make sure it is in our scope of work that you will be doing whatever that groundwork is needed to prepare us, if we choose to incorporate this into our general plan.
So you're speaking to the climate action itself or the climate vulnerability assessment, which will support your safety element update?
Well, I was thinking of the climate action plan
Okay.
itself.
You want to speak to that?
Yeah, so definitely our plans are from the foundation really, I would say, a holistic approach to make sure that it could, be incorporated at that process. And if that's the route, we also, at this phase, we included an initial study to support as far as the CEQA analysis goes. That is, as we move forward and the project evolves, if there's a need for an EIR or a desire, we can absolutely pivot that direction very easily without changing any of the foundational work that we've done prior to that. So happy to provide more information, but does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're all lined up to do that. Should we
So
want to
yes,
go in that
Councilmember
direction?
Brotman. So in the initial scope of work, we asked for initial study regarding the CEQA analysis, but we actually went back to the consultants and asked them to provide us what they could do in a full EIR, environmental impact report, provide additional costing for them to do those studies if we needed to do that to accomplish the points that you just discussed. So we'd already had those discussions with the consultants who are prepared to, if we need to to come back to council, potentially requesting additional funds to do an EIR. But Rincon Consultants feel that the initial study that they will provide is enough to develop a qualified climate action adaptation plan, so we can do that streamlining that you just mentioned.
Right, and whether you include it as part of your general plan or not does not necessarily drive the CEQA clearance document, if it's an initial study or if it's an EIR. That's something that we could evaluate, like you're saying, after the initial study is released. There are pros and cons to including it as part of your general plan. If you update your climate action plan, it becomes a general plan amendment, which has its own process. The climate action plan tends to be more actionable and more specific than a general plan policy document. So sometimes jurisdictions choose to have it as a separate sort of strategic planning level, where your general plan is more your umbrella policy document, and strategic plans like climate action plans could be separate. So it's really a city discretion, and it doesn't influence our scope of work.
Okay, so that's something we'll get to later on in the process.
Correct.
Okay. I had some comments, but I'll wait.
No, let's
Well,
let's do questions.
I don't have any.
Okay, no questions. Before we get into the comments, we do have one caller. Can we go to the phones, please?
We have one caller, Elise Kafayan. Elise, you're on air. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Kasaki and City Council and staff, for moving forward with a comprehensive climate action and adaptation plan for Glendale. I'm calling on behalf of the Glendale Environmental Coalition, and climate impacts are increasing in number and severity here in Glendale, and having a good plan is key to community action, and having a consultant who's familiar with cities in our region is also a plus. We appreciate that Glendale is already taking action, electrifying landscaping equipment, engineering streets to make them safer for pedestrians and cyclists, getting grants to increase local stormwater capture, and moving forward with the city fleet electrification plan. I think we may be the first city in California to approve fleet electrification, so thank you. We appreciate Rincon's emphasis on innovative ways to keep the community engaged and up to date on the city's progress toward equitable climate goals, and we fully support these goals and the city's commitment to equitable climate action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now turn to Councilmember Devine for comments, and then we'll go through to Councilmember Brotman, and then whoever wants to speak next.
Okay, well, I just have some general comments. And number one, it seems like this is a good choice. I was very impressed with the sample that we got. I actually read practically the whole thing, and highlighted, and everything was ready. But that was very impressive work. Mr. Jones said you have a number of tasks, and I think that's an understatement. You have a lot of tasks, a lot of work to do here, and I'm very happy that we're going ahead with this action plan. Also, I just want to mention that you will need a robust outreach process in our community, and please, I noticed there, you do look at fiscal responsibility in your report, and I want to emphasize that that's really important, especially with the economy and our future fiscal issues. So those are my only comments. Good luck, and I'm looking forward to your work. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
You want to go?
I'm just going to note, I'm very excited for this. I also went through the details, very thorough presentation you had. The one thing I would ask is to make sure that the community engagement portion is crafted specifically for Glendale and our diverse communities, and we don't take some model that we've used in other cities and just implement that in ours. So thank you, and I look forward to voting for this.
Okay, the same, I'm happy with the selection. I did actually attend community meetings in Pasadena many years ago when they were developing their plan, and was impressed. So I'm assuming we're going to get even better quality work now, since there's so much more experience. Yeah, this is something that I've wanted to see since long before I considered running for council. It's been 10 years since we did our last such effort. And the world has so fundamentally changed in the last 10 years. The effects of climate change are here and now. I think 10 years ago we used to talk about our children and grandchildren. Now we're talking about us. And the scientific consensus obviously is much more certain. The warning's much more frightening from the scientific community. So we need to do what we can in our own little sandbox. We can't wait for a savior. I know we're just Glendale, but hopefully what we do will encourage others to do the same. So I'm excited to see what we can accomplish here. Just two specific things on the goals. The 2030 goal, in the report it was a little bit vague, but I'm assuming and would want to make sure that we're at least aligning with SB 32, 40% reduction below 1990 levels. I know the numbers will be different because our benchmark is not going to be 1990, so it'll be actually a higher number than that, but I want to make sure we're assuming that from the start. And since the governor recently signed AB 1279, which calls for carbon neutrality or net zero carbon, I don't know if it's exactly the same thing, but by 2045, not 2050, and negative thereafter, I would want to make sure that we strike the 2050 that I saw in our report and replace that with 2045, and that we do also consider that negative thereafter piece of the equation. You know, what can we do? What's our part that we can play in sequestration or in anything like that? Drawdown, whatever you want to call it. So thank you.
All right. Okay. I think everything was pretty much said. I echo every comment and sentiment, including reiterating the need for robust outreach. One of your strengths is that you have worked with neighboring cities, so you have a knowledge of the region, but that could quite easily lead to perhaps passiveness in terms of how we do outreach and education and engagement in Glendale, where we have a large number of immigrants who call our city home. More than half our population was born somewhere other than the United States, as well as communities where there's limited English proficiency. And I want to emphasize that with the approval of this contract and partnering with the city to come up with this plan, my expectation and nothing short of it is that you will take every effort to make sure that you reach people in the way that they deserve to hear the information and that they expect to hear the information and how they're consuming information within their communities now. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
Second?
Okay, there's been a motion made to, all right, I know their mic was off, but Councilmember Brotman made the motion to execute this professional services agreement, and it was seconded by Councilmember Devine. May we have roll call, please?
Yes. Council members Asatrian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Divine,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Kasakian.
Yes. Next item, please.
Next item is item 2, management services regarding environmental preferable purchasing. Motion providing direction on key policy principles to incorporate into city's environmental preferable purchasing policy.
All right, Mr. Galanian.
Yes, Mayor Kasakian, member of City Council, since Mr. Jones already seated at the hot seat, we'll just invite him to the presentation on this item, and he'll be seeking direction from council on a number of policy principles that later on will be incorporated into our administrative policy. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. Manager, again, good afternoon, Mayor Kasaki and members. So as the City Manager mentioned, today we are seeking recommendation from City Council to adopt a motion and direction on some key principles from which we can develop and craft the environmental purchasing policy. Thank you very much. I'll start again. Staff recommend that the Council adopt a motion providing direction on key principles from which we can craft the environmental preferable purchasing policy. So a little bit of background. As the Council well knows, we've been in front of Council before on this issue. We first started way back in March 2021 where we provided council just an overview of what an environmental preferable purchasing policy would look like. In July of that year, 2021, we went to the Sustainability Commission and asked them to provide us some information on what they thought would be important in developing an environmental preferable purchasing policy. We came back to council on October 19th of 2021, outlining some potential strategies that may be used to prepare the enhanced environmental preferable purchasing policy. And then after a long wait, and there's a reason for that, on August 4th, we came back to the Sustainability Commission and asked them to pass a recommendation of attributes that should be included within an environmental preferable purchasing policy. One of the reasons for the gap between October 2021 and August 2022 was we were waiting for the latest from Cal Recycle SB 1383 and the purchasing requirements required with implementing that piece of legislation. So, as you know, the purchasing policy rests within the administrative policy manual of the city. It's also the idea of the environmental purchasing policy to also reside within the administrative policy manual. So today we're asking council to adopt a motion laying out policy positions. The reason we're asking this is because these policy positions will enable us to craft the environmental preferable purchasing policy. And these policy positions will provide us guidelines to craft the policy and also to implement the policy. Then finally, once we have drafted the policy, it will go through the administrative policy manual process and end up with the city manager and the city's attorney's office to approve the EPP policy for inclusion within the citywide administrative policy manual. So there's a process that we're going to have to go through once we receive direction from council on the policy principles. So I'm going to just review these policy principles fairly quickly, and I'll be able to answer any questions afterwards. And we also have Ashwin Bokai from our purchasing department who will be able to also respond to any questions. So one of the key policy principles, probably the first one and the easiest one, is to focus on efficiency. And I know this was a big push of our purchasing department. So we want to be able to implement source reduction programs focused on increasing efficiency within the purchasing program and reducing waste and eliminating unnecessary purchases. This may sound simple, but it is effective. So asking ourselves questions: why are we potentially buying the service or product? What are potential opportunities for bulk purchasing options? And a very good example of that is something that we currently do, is the purchasing of products needed to support our single-use plastics ordinance, which City Council passed some time ago. We purchase, I think, about 2,000 to 3,000 items that are stocked in our warehouse. So staff and attorney, instead of having to go out and individually purchasing those items, they can just go into the warehouse and select those items for use. This has a number of benefits. It avoids repetitive purchases, and also, it reduces carbon footprint by reducing the number of deliveries we have, by reducing the packaging associated with projects. So that's an example of a bulk purchasing program opportunity. Also, in terms of efficiency, what are the opportunities for reuse and what are the opportunities for sharing product? In discussions with the Sustainability Commission, they expressed the need for vendor reporting attributes of goods and services. Tracking the process of environmental preferable purchasing programs fosters accountability amongst various stakeholders and informs the need of change in policy and procedures. So this data that we will potentially get will result in making our program more efficient and more productive in the future. So first, as I said, the first principle is to focus on efficiency. Our second principle is, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's use programs that are existing. For example, federal agencies and many state and local governments are encouraged or required to buy recycled content product that meets the recommended procurement guidelines established by the US EPA. The US EPA Comprehensive Procurement Guide identifies more than 61 products designated in 8 categories of products containing recycled materials, with particular emphasis on post-consumer recycled content. Examples of designated products are construction products, non-paper office products, park and recreation products, and vehicle products. The aim will be to incorporate these products into the EPP policy where appropriate, and this will be basically used as our baseline for the development of our EPP policy. So let's not reinvent the wheel if the products are out there and other people are already purchasing those products. Other policy principles, again, fairly simple but informative and practical, and that is to purchase some Energy Star and Water Sense projects. Energy Star has maintained an estimate 60 standards for products such as copiers, faxes, and other office equipment. So why not rely on those that work that's already been done by the EPA to identify these products that use less energy and use less water? So let's begin to codify that into our environmental purchasing policy. Outside those government programs, there are independent third-party and environmental product service labels, sustainability labels, which can be used to identify green products and services. The benefits of using these types of labels is it reduces the additional work necessary to research products. It can help avoid conflicting or confusing information that may create misconceptions about the quality and performance of environmentally preferable products. And it allows us to avoid inaccurate or deceptive greenwashing claims, such as earth-friendly, eco-safe, all-natural, or ozone-safe, for example. So these programs are out there, so let's utilize those to help us write standards, write specifications to procure different products. One of the recommendations from the Sustainability Commission was to incorporate extended producer responsibility mandates into our purchasing program. Currently, within California, there are 6 extended producer responsibility programs: paint, carpet, mattresses, pharmaceuticals, thermostats, and pesticides. So we want to be able to continually review EPR mandates and keep an eye on products, especially such future projects such as solar panels, batteries, and single-use packaging, which are all product items that may eventually have EPR programs associated with them. So we're going to make sure that we meet the 6 California programs, but also keep our eye out for future programs.
Go ahead, Councilmember Rahman.
And just to clarify, in case people don't necessarily know, when you talk about extended producer responsibility, you're talking about take-back programs. Basically,
Correct.
they take back whatever trash is produced in the delivery and also at the end of life, is that right?
That's mainly at the end of life, correct?
Mainly
yes.
at the end of life,
Yes.
okay, thanks.
Batteries too. They're doing
Batteries,
that.
yeah.
Well, yes, batteries too. Another recommendation of the Sustainability Commission was to look at the practice of price preferences and see where that practice may be beneficial or maybe we'd be able to utilize within our purchasing program. So price preference enables purchasers to pay more for recycled products up to a certain threshold, for example, within 5% of the non-recycled product price. But today, many EPP products are competitively priced with non-EP products. However, as we look to potentially expand our EPP program and obtain the desired environmentally preferable products, providing some flexibility is required as part of a best value procurement. This is a program that, as we establish the environmentally preferable purchasing program, and we look and analyze it and audit it, this is something that we may do in the future if it becomes, we think, necessary for us to increase our spend on environmentally preferable purchasing products. And then one of the key recommendations from the Sustainability Commission was to almost establish a list of environmentally preferable products, or default products as they put it. And the reason the Sustainability recommended this idea was it's very easy if you put in place an EPP program for it to backslide and people not to adhere to it. So if you establish like a basket of products, which is a list that have to buy and people have to go back and buy those products, it gives more weight, more robustness to the EPP program. So this is one of their recommendations. Again, as we're developing the pilot program, putting it in place, this is something that we will look at. Sorry. So we have 3 alternatives available for City Council. Recommend that City Council provide direction on the key principles from which environmental purchasing policy will be developed. Alternative 2 is to amend the motion to include modified language on the key policy principles for guiding the development of the environmental preferable purchasing policy. And finally, alternative 3, the City Council may consider any other alternative not presented by staff at this time. And with that, we are available to answer any questions City Council may have.
All right. Do any of my colleagues have questions? And do we have any callers for this item?
We do not.
Okay. Who would like to go first? Go ahead, Councilmember Brotman. Since everyone
Okay, let
else
me
is-
just start with a few questions, and let me start by acknowledging, thanking David and all the hard work you've done. I know you've been to the Sustainability Commission twice on this. I think you've been to us twice on this,
Yes, sir.
right? Is this our third time?
This
I
is your
think
lucky
so.
third
Okay.
time, yes.
Okay, so there's a lot that's gone into this. And I also want to thank the Sustainability Commission, in particular Jennifer Pinkerton, and I want to thank Councilmember Devine for appointing Jennifer Pinkerton to the Sustainability Commission, because she has a lot of experience with this in LA, and I think she's been really instrumental in giving us good advice. So thank you for putting her on. Now, a couple things she did, I believe she told me that in LA, they've put a 10% price, I guess, whatever you call it, like a 10% price difference in their manual, so that if something is up to 10% more expensive, then it can be selected over the, equivalent non-EPP product. You mentioned 5%. Is this something that you're looking for us to give direction on, or where are you on this?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Member of City Council, Afshin Bukai, Deputy Director of Finance. The 5%, I believe Mr. Jones mentioned 5 to 10%. We don't have any number right now. The 10% of CDLA is a good number, but I believe eventually after this program started and we have this policy, we will come up with the number. It is one set number for entire environmental preferred products, or we come up with the different numbers based on different products that we are required, I believe, council to approve price preference as a resolution. I defer the answer to that question to Mr. Garcia, because by charter we are required to award to the lowest bidder, and any price preference required council action. So the number is not set yet, whether it's 5%, 10%, or maybe we come up with a different variation of numbers for certain products that are more competition, 5%, for products that are have less competition, up to 15 or maybe even higher percentage. Depends on what products and what category of products it is. But as of now, there is no specific recommendation what percentage, if I answer that question.
Okay, so how do we tackle that? Is this something you're going to work on in the manual and come back to us if you need to, or?
So the anticipation is over the first year as we roll out this program to do that analysis to identify what products the program allows us to buy, and then to identify that where those products are not being purchased, if we do have this price preference program in place, we'll be able to increase the amount of EPP products within the program. So it gives us that flexibility to look at how effective the program is, and then if we need to incorporate a price preference policy to make sure that we can purchase a higher percentage of spend on EPP products. So
Okay. And then the other thing I know that she has talked about is, a few things. One of them is when we spec our purchases, in an RFP, right? What we should do is use those EPA or other guidelines, right? So she gave an example, carpets, the EPA, I think, says 5 to 50% post-consumer content in cushions, 100% recovered fiber, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of detail there, right? So if we spec to those requirements, then we're going to get EPP product proposals, and then there's not this question of price difference, you know. So I hope we can consider that. I wasn't clear, the point you said about vendors, you did this in the context of reducing our waste, and you said something about vendors compiling reports that they give to us as opposed to city staff compiling these reports. What's the connection?
So the vendors have the ability, they know what product they provide us, they know what the recycled content of the products are that they provide us. So as we have contract negotiations with those vendors, we say, you need to provide us this information on this products, the recycled or the environmental performance of this products that you're providing us. It just gives us the ability to start tracking the amount of green product that we get into the city, and then from that tracking, we can see how effective our program is. So it's just a way to understand potentially how effective our program
Okay,
is.
so you're saying that is something that you intend to
Yes,
incorporate?
absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
that's good. And then the other thing about, let me just look here. You know, using kind of one vendor for things, I think, well, there was a question that came up at the Sustainability Commission, I'm not sure if it was answered, that, you know, do we buy off of an annual centralized contract, like, for example, Staples or Office Depot? I think she was saying that it's recommended to do that because if each department is doing their own, then we're paying maybe higher prices. And she also said that there's the possibility that we could piggyback on City of LA or county paper contracts. We'd pay a handling fee, but we might get lower prices that way. And then we know that those are going to be green products. So can you just address that?
Again, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Brotman, we actually use City of LA, County of LA for purchase of paper products. And for office supplies, we are using a national contract. We piggyback, terminology is piggybacking.
We're already doing that.
We already doing that.
Perfect.
And in that contract for office supplies, we already pre-established a basket of around 100 to 120 environmentally preferred products that have been suggested when somebody log in to that website to purchase from on behalf of the city. They'll see that list of products, and that report is available every quarter that we're getting from our current vendor is Staples. We get that report that include all the attributes of the environmental, like, you know, paper content, recycled paper content, or any other recycled or environmentally preferred attribute of those products are being all reported in the report.
But is that the default? Like when we order off of those contracts, those items
right now
are
it's suggestion.
EPP?
It's basically that contract, all the city departments are required to order office supplies primarily from that contract.
Okay.
And they all have a special username and password for that particular contract that they can log in and get the product that is price is piggybackable price. And on top of being price are pre-negotiated. Also, we have a pre-selected environmentally preferred product, which we hand-selected based on the various criteria.
But now it's just a recommendation.
Right now, it's recommendation, but it pops up as, you know, we encourage departments to use that list.
Okay, but in this new policy that we're developing, there would be defaults for some of these standard products. Is that what we're saying? We're going to go to kind of a default method for the commonly purchased items where there is a clear market for EPP products that are cost competitive and all that, right?
Yes, that's a vision that we use this policy as a guideline to pave the road to make that some sort of mandatory for department to only purchase those products.
Okay. Yeah, I think that covers everything for me. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? I know we have one caller, but let me turn to my colleagues first because I know the call came in just now. Questions, comments? Go ahead, Councilmember Devine.
I kind of do. I don't know if this will make any sense, but when we talk about this premium 5 to 10% on the cost of these items, are we still conducting competitive bidding?
Mr. Member of City Council, Councilman Devine, correct. Basically, because we are buying a wide variety of products, that 5 or 10% or whatever percentage that we come up with the premium will be adjustment to the lowest bid price to award an ability to award to a price for a product that's environmentally preferred product. We still go out for bid. As a very example, we put something out for bid and the lowest bid come back as $100, which is not environmentally preferred product. But the next bidder, which is environmentally preferred product, is $105. We award it to $105, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
What if it's above that? Let's say, what if it's above 110?
Then we are not
It
awarded. We go with the lowest bidder, $100. So basically, the 5%, for example, adjustment is just to give to anybody who has a environmentally preferred products.
Okay, and if I could,
Councilmember
I confirm that LA is 10%, and the message I get here is it's rarely a problem. It's rarely used. They rarely have to go to the non-preferred product because there's more than a 10% difference. That's what I'm being told.
Yeah, that's.
Is that her position? Is
Well,
she
she's
with
just
LA
giving
City?
us the facts.
But is she with LA City?
Yes. She does this work for LA City, so that's why she knows.
She's very well versed. Let's go to the caller. Councilmember Al-Satrian, I didn't see her. Okay, then let's go to
Okay.
the caller.
Our caller is Jennifer Pinkerton. Jennifer, you are on air and you have 3 minutes.
Speaking of,
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add a few comments to the discussion that may help you with this issue. I know most purchasing professionals are trained in low bidding, but I think a better concept these days is best overall value. And the word I didn't hear today during the presentation is the word default. If you want a rigorous EPP program, you should have as extensive a list as possible of applicable products with the goal of defaulting only to an EPP version. So, for example, if you're bidding for copier paper or janitorial papers, your specifications would mandate recycled content, unbleached paper, things of that sort. And you should ideally only compare prices for different EPP products. The gentleman that spoke a minute ago said you might compare, it sounded like non-EPP product to EPP. Ideally, that should never happen because your specifications should ensure that you're always getting an EPP product. Going back for a moment to better overall value, one of the things under EPP that's very stressed is looking for less toxic or hazardous options. So, for example, it might behoove the city to buy rechargeable batteries versus non-rechargeable batteries. You want to avoid, whenever possible, products that are difficult or expensive to recycle at the end of their life. So I would just, and I will reiterate what Councilmember Brotman just said, the 10% price premium was envisioned primarily for new products, new EPP products coming into the marketplace, because typically until they have a larger market share, they are more expensive, but that's really not the case very often. But I would just say I encourage you strongly to default to EPP products and only do price comparison between EPP products. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Yes, Councilmember Devine?
So the question is, for me, when you were talking about bidding, were you talking about just the EPP products that would be bidding?
Mr. Member of City Council, Councilmember Devine, in purchasing, we receive a specification from department. This guideline provide us, this policy gives us a guideline how departments can define and specify product. While there are certain situations, department can definitely mention that we only specify environmentally preferred product as a specification. In that case, still environmentally preferred product goes out for bid, and there's no 5% involved in that case because we only accept environmentally preferred products. But in certain situations, when there's not enough market saturation of environmentally preferred products, when we are accepting both new products and virgin products, new products, non-recycled products, and non-environmentally preferred products and environmentally preferred products, all of these baskets, that 5% only applicable in that situation. But in both situations, whether environmentally preferred or not, we always go out for bid, and we award it to the lowest bidder.
Right, but we're not just receiving bids from EPP products.
As I indicate, it depends on how the specification of that product is written. In certain situations, we may only accept environmentally preferred product as a specification, if that makes sense.
I think I understand that now, yeah.
If I could just,
If the product isn't there, that's EPP, then we have to go
Right.
other
We need to open it
non-EPP.
for non-environmentally preferred
Got it.
product as well. Or if there is a limited competition for environmentally preferred products. Majority of market is non-environmentally preferred products, but there are some environmentally preferred products. This 5% come into play in that. So the department, when developing a specification, the way they can describe it is, we accept both products. In that case, that 5% plays a role to make a selection, help 5 or 10% or whatever percentage is
For the EPP.
to help that. And even as Mr. Jones indicated, we may go even beyond 5 or 10%. We provide various categories. For categories that are more competition, less percentage preference. For products that have more less competition in the market, to help them get into this, maybe we recommend higher percentage to help them come into the selection of the lowest bidder, become the lowest bidder.
so,
Councilmember Najarian.
So let me ask the question, is this only for consumables? Or is it for capital equipment also?
Everything. Everything.
So let's say they have to replace the filter system at the pool, and the Parks Department says we only want an environmentally preferred product, which may turn out to be a saline filtration system. And that saline filtration system may be double the cost of the traditional chlorine system. I'm just giving you an example. Then we're obligated to go to the saline system, even if it's double the cost?
If, as a result of this policy, departments has to go with that specific environmentally preferred products, then yes,
That's their spec. Let's say Onyx says, you know what, it's got to be saline.
That's correct.
So we would have to.
We would not
we'd be
accept
stuck with it.
non-environmentally preferred product. So if it's double in
Okay, I have a problem with that. In that extreme example that I tried to create, I have a problem with that. Paper, pencils, chairs, carpet, filters, paint, I can get. But when we talk about capital equipment and things like that,
I believe in the report.
that extreme example makes me pause.
Right. I believe in the report, Mr. Jones indicated that we are not going with one size solution. Probably is going to be a variety of different solutions that basically for situation like that capital that are extremely expensive. If the department specify only environmentally preferred product, which end up being double the cost, probably that need to be reconsidered.
And Councilmember Najarian, so in the initial pilot rolling out of this program, so we'd have, if that's something that we're going to do, we'd have to come back to City Council with a resolution. I'm asking City Council for resolution, say if we're going to have a price preference policy, up to what limit would you allow? And if so, if a product comes back double, so that beyond the range of percentage, then no, that product wouldn't be able to.
This will come back to us and we'll work out those little details at that point.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yes, Councilmember Brahman.
I was just going to say, so I think what I'm hearing, what Jennifer suggested, I think it's what you're saying is, so for the majority of routine products, the paper products, motor oil I know has been mentioned, I have a list here, tires, toner cartridges, a lot of those routine products, we can just have a default, because we know that there's a rich market in EPP products. So we can just have that as a default. The departments, when they come to purchasing, that's what they'll be asking for, and then we can just choose the lowest bid. But for products that are more kind of emerging, the EPP version is just emerging, those products will be different, and they will kind of come up with their specs, their generic specs, and then we'll do that comparison. And then if there's a very significant price difference, we may say that's not something we're prepared to do, but if there's not, right? I think that's what we're talking about.
That's
And
it.
then for like these large, very unusual kinds of situations, I think that's, the department, I'm sure, is gonna be, you know, looking at their budget and looking at what they wanna do. And I don't know if the sustainability office will have any input into those kinds of decisions, but maybe it should. I don't know. I'll leave that kind of out for discussion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. City Manager Galani, did you want to comment? No?
That was a bit of indigestion he had,
All right.
that's all.
Since you offered, Mr. Mayor, I was going to say the respective departments will definitely consult with the Sustainability Office, but the Sustainability Office will not be the driver of that decision.
Any comments? If there isn't any, I'd just like to say that I encourage this effort. What I'd like to see as part of us moving forward with the recommendations is that annually we receive a report across the organization from department to department. I'd be curious to know how many products we were able to and how many items we were able to replace with a more sustainable EPP alternative. It would be important for us to, as part of a holistic view of how we're minimizing our carbon footprint and how we are leading by example. It would be good for us as council and for the public, because when we see it, it's going to be shared, it's information shared with the public to see the efforts that we're making. So I would like to incorporate that into a policy that we get an annual report on that. Anyone else would agree with that?
Sure.
So with that, is there anyone who would like to make a motion? We have some other items that we have to get through, so. Councilmember Al-Satrian?
I'll second it.
Okay. There's been a motion and a second. Let's have roll call.
Council members Asatrian,
Yes?
Brotman,
Yes.
Divine,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Kasakian.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we still have a few more things here, and I know that there were some folks that, are we okay? Should we just go through the listed order? Okay, so with that, let's have item 3 read into the record.
Yes, item 3 is Police Department regarding jail security system, request to dispense with competitive bidding and authorize the execution of an amendment to the city's agreement with Birdie System, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $600,000 for the completion of the jail security system for a total contract amount not to exceed $1,013,518. A resolution to dispense with competitive bidding and authorize the city manager or designee to execute an amendment to the city's agreement with Birdie System, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $600,000 for the completion of the jail security system for a total contract amount not to exceed $1,013,518.
Right. City Manager Galani, or Chief Bovalitis, please.
Good afternoon, Mayor Kasaki, members of council. We're here before you Carl Bovalitis, Police Chief, here before you to ask that we amend a contract with Birdie Systems to complete a jail security project. Back in 2017, we realized we needed to complete a security project. We did an assessment. We had initial bids of 1.2 to 1.3 million to do the project completely. We had approximately $449,000 in funding, so the project was phased. With the initial monies, we completed the first part of the project. At this point, that was completed in 2019. At this point, we need to complete the second phase of the project, which deals with our door controls, audio monitoring, broadcasting systems, alarm systems within the jail. The performance of this contractor has actually been very, very good, and so we would like to complete the rest of this project with them. That will also keep the warranties and service intact. And so they've done a good job. So again, we're asking for that you authorize us to, within the budget, to execute an agreement not to exceed an additional $600,000 with Birdie Systems.
Thank you, Chief. Makes sense to maintain a consistency. Let me turn to my colleagues, see if there's any questions, and ask clerk, do we have any callers on this?
We don't have any callers.
Thank you.
I just have one question,
Councilmember
if I
Devine.
may. Thank
Absolutely.
you. If the residents of LA vote to close the jails in LA, would that impact us at all?
It would not impact us. We operate a type 1 jail facility, which means we hold people prior to arraignment, at which time they are transferred to the custody of the sheriffs. And so we'll still have a need for the booking facilities and the temporary holding facilities.
Thank you. I'll move the item.
All right, thank you. There has been a motion, and was there seconded by Councilmember Brotman. Let us have roll call, please.
Council members Asatryan,
Yes?
Brotman,
Yes.
Divine,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Kasakian.
Yes, thank you. All right, item 4, please.
Item 4, Libraries, Arts, and Culture regarding citywide public art landmarks, Glen Oaks Boulevard Medium Public Art Piece. A motion authorizing the city manager or designee to enter into an agreement for commission of artwork subject to approval by the city attorney with Forma Studio in an amount not to exceed $100,000 dispersed from the Urban Art Fund to design, engineer, fabricate, deliver, and supervise the city's installation of a public art piece entitled Hahamonga for the Glen Oaks Boulevard ground level sculpture public art piece.
All right, thank you. City Manager Galanian?
Yes, so I was just going to introduce Jennifer Fukutami-Jones, our Principal Library Arts and Culture Administrator, who will make the presentation on this item as well as the next item. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great.
Good afternoon, Mayor Kasaki and members of City Council, City staff. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you today. We are very excited to share about the Glen Oaks Boulevard Median Public Art Opportunity. Let me see if the slides are up yet. Okay. I don't think I have access to it, but just to provide context, an overview of what has happened thus far. In October of 2020, City Council approved a public services agreement with LaBasse Projects to curate and commission up to 10 public art landmarks within the city of Glendale. In May of 2021, during a special Arts and Culture Commission meeting, LaBasse Projects proposed 6 potential locations for citywide public art landmarks within the city, and this Arts and Culture Commission has approved those 6 locations, which are included in your agenda packet. In September of 2021, LaBasse Projects released a citywide public art landmarks RFQ, and in that process, we received 256 applications for this opportunity. So we're very excited with the process of these. In early of 2022, staff met with an artist review and selection committee to review all 256 applications, and from there we began the process of reviewing the proposals for these opportunities. On April 7th, 2022, the Arts and Culture Commission held a special meeting to review specifically the proposals for the Glen Oaks Boulevard Median Public Art Project, and we received 5 proposals. From that meeting, the Arts and Culture Commission is recommending a first recommendation, which we're going to talk about today, and an alternate recommendation. So I'll go forward. Looks like... Can you move the slides for me? It looks like this is not working. So as we mentioned before, this public art opportunity is located on the Glen Oaks Boulevard median between Central Avenue and Brand Boulevard, directly across from the Hilton Hotel. Next slide. The proposal that the Arts and Culture Commission is recommending is Hahamonga by Forma Studio, and here's a picture on the screen of what the proposed artwork would look like. Next screen. The inspiration for this piece, as you can see on the screen, is a map of the Verdugo Mountains. So it really wanted to encompass the city of Glendale and wanting to emphasize the word Hahamonga, which in Tongva translates as fruitful valley. So it's really wanting to initiate the idea that this is the land of the fruitful valley. Next slide, please. And again, another texture kind of inspiration. So you can see on the piece, the lines that are, the very small dotted lines that are within the public art are indicative of the trails and the mountains within the public art piece. And it's going to be really beautiful if you go to the next slide.
That's a question, though.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Brotman.
Question about that image, the last image. Yeah, that one. So does anybody actually look at it this way? Because it's like on this median, you got cars going both ways. Nobody's really going to be viewing it like this, are they?
I believe, well, and it'll allude to when the lights are hitting it, and it can kind of show the texture of the piece when the lights are hitting it, especially when the natural light is hitting the piece as well. So if we can go to the next slide. Again, this is a texture drawing, rendering of what the Verdugo Mountains are kind of inlaid over the piece, which is what the holes that you're referring to, Councilmember Brotman. And if you go to the next piece, this is what the actual piece would look like, which is again alluding to the Verdugo Mountains, but then this is what the piece would look like without the lights. And if you go to the next slide, you can kind of see how it's lit from within. This is a sunset photo. The lights will be within the piece, but also showing the texture of what the mountains look like. So it alludes to the Verdugo Mountains. If you go to the next slide, even more of an example of what the piece would look like when it's lit up at night. It'll really highlight the texture of the Verdugo Mountains in the next slide. This is what the dimensions of the piece are. So it'll be about 30 feet long and 11 feet wide and 12 feet high. They are planning to utilize all the trees that are currently located within the median. So there's a palm tree that is in the median currently that would be surrounding the artwork. So that would be the focal piece of that artwork. Next slide. This is again a rendering specifically sharing how the piece will be lit. They are using LEDs and high quality lighting fixtures to specifically light the piece within. Next slide. And this is the budget, which is the overall budget for the piece is $100,000 specifically for this artwork. So this is the recommendation that the Arts and Culture Commission is recommending for review and approval by City Council. And the alternate piece, which if you go to the next slide, is a proposal entitled Vista by How de Souza, which was similarly describe it alludes to the multicultural diversity within the city with the various colors, and it is a fencing type of steel piece that would be located within the median. This piece is not intended to be lit up at night, but this is the alternate piece that the Arts and Culture Commission is recommending. And then the next slide is the proposal for that piece as well. But that concludes the proposal for this, the presentation for this proposal. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right, sure, I'll allow my colleagues to ask questions, and then we do have one caller on this item. Councilmember Alsatian.
Is this in any way gonna affect the possible BRT project?
Is this the Beyond the Box project?
No.
BRT, the
Bus rapid
rapid bus going down Glen Oaks?
No, not to my knowledge. It is not going to affect the BRT project.
It's not.
Gary Schaefer, Director, Library Arts and Culture. So in looking at the BRT proposal, it does not impact that.
Okay.
And it is permanent.
Yes.
Any other questions? Yes, Councilmember Brotman?
Question along the same lines. Why this particular location? Because this is to the east of Brand, right? I was thinking it would be nice for it to be near that turn of the BRT or near a BRT station or somewhere where people can actually interact with it.
Isn't it?
It's between, it is on Glen Oaks Boulevard between Brand and Central.
Okay, it's to the west, Okay. Why there? How did you arrive at that location?
That's an excellent question, Councilmember Rotman. So in reviewing all the various locations throughout the city of Glendale, one of this particular intersection and area of Glen Oaks Boulevard was highlighted as a high traffic area with the intention of wanting to calm traffic within that particular corridor. So the intention of having public art is to allude to traffic safety and wanting to have drivers slow down as they drive through the corridor of Glen Oaks Boulevard. So that was why it was chosen as a location.
Okay. Let's go to the caller.
Actually, the caller is the BOBAS consultant.
Okay.
In case council has any questions.
So I don't have a question for the consultant. I do have a question for staff in terms of, I know that the question was asked, and I think aptly, about how it will impact BRT. I hope that we'll consult with not just the assumptions based on what we know of the project, but actually communicate with our traffic and or transportation and parking folks to make sure that in terms of, and public works to make sure that it won't conflict, but also in terms of visibility, as long as it doesn't impede, I don't know if it'll make people not be able to see people making certain turns or coming up to the intersection. I hope it doesn't, and I'm assuming that that's been taken into consideration. I think the piece is interesting. It's nice that it pays homage to the people that were here before any settlers came, or the earliest settlers, we should say.
That we know of.
That we know of, yeah. And yeah, I think it's, and personally, I would like to see more art pieces along Glen Oaks. If, for those who are familiar with West Hollywood, know that there's a number of art pieces that are on the median of, I believe that's Santa Monica Boulevard that goes through the heart of West Hollywood. I envision something like that, not just in the downtown, but for folks in other parts of Glen Oaks to also enjoy, especially as we build out the bus line there, and people may use the stops and spend more time in that green median area. Any comments? Yes, Councilmember Devine.
I'm just over the moon. Oh, I'm on.
Mic is on.
I'm over the moon with this project. I just love the concept. I love the fact that the terrain lines of the Verdugo Mountains are kind of a source of identification. And, you know, this is something that our community can relate to, unlike the curtain or whatever that was at Artsakh. I mean, this is a really, I think, and for the price, I mean, the cost is acceptable. It's kind of, it runs, it's not excessive, but I think it's a beautiful work, and I'm really happy about this piece. Lovely, great, good idea.
Anyone like to make a motion?
I will move the item.
Councilmember Brotman?
Yeah, no, I guess I have a different reaction to it. I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but it just doesn't knock my socks off. It's not very, wow, I don't think it's something people are going to go home talking about. I don't know, it doesn't thrill me. I would prefer something that somehow people can interact with. I guess you can't interact with something on a median, but, you know, or I don't know, the thing you mentioned about, was it West Hollywood? Is that like a repeating theme along?
West Hollywood has rotating pieces of art. It's not always, it hasn't been the same piece of art, because I've gone back, and when you drive through it, you'll see different sculptures. There are some, I think, they're more permanent, and actually one of the things that they do, which was suggested by previous councils before and here, when the Neon Museum was open, they had neon art pieces also in the median, which I don't know if they do anymore, but yeah.
Anyway, I'm not against it, but I'm not that excited. I wish we were seeing things that were more, that made me really stop and think. So I don't know, but I mean, so far on a lot of the stuff we've seen, I think it's been kind of good, not amazing.
All right. Anyone else want to comment? There was a motion made by Councilmember Devine. Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second it.
All right, it was seconded by Councilmember Asatryan. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Asatryan,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Divine,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Kasakian.
Yes, now let's read the last item on the agenda in the record, and then we'll turn over to Ms. Fukutami Jones.
Okay. Item 5 is Libraries, Arts, and Culture regarding citywide public art landmarks, Verdugo Park mural ground level public art piece. Motion authorizing the city manager or designee to enter into an agreement for commission of artwork, subject to approval by the city attorney with Aaron Miller Wray in an amount not to exceed $50,000 dispersed from the Urban Art Fund to design, fabricate, and install a public art piece entitled Verdugo Park Mural for the Verdugo Park mural ground level public art piece.
All right, please, go ahead.
Mayor Kasakian, again, thank you so much. City members of City Council, city staff, thank you for the opportunity to share with you today. Once again, we're very excited to share with you a public art opportunity that we have at the Verdugo Park, specifically the South Facilities Building ground level mural. This, as we mentioned before in the previous agenda item, we've been working with Labas Projects to procure and commission 6 public art locations within the city of Glendale. This was one of them. On June 30th of 2022, the Arts and Culture Commission held a special meeting to review 4 proposals for this particular opportunity. The presentation that we have today is going to share the first recommendation that Arts and Culture Commission has in addition to an alternate recommendation. If you can go to the next slide. So as we mentioned, the location of this particular public art piece is at Verdugo Park, located directly next to the skate park, which is the South Facilities Building. Next slide. This is a proposal or an inspiration shared by the artist. Her name is Erin Miller Ray for her proposal Verdugo Park mural. Erin Miller Ray is a resident of Glendale and she lives in Shoal Canyon area, so she is very tied to this project and inspired by the multicultural, diverse communities that we have within the city of Glendale, and thus her proposal really focuses on color everywhere, meaning wanting to splash communities and colors and representation everywhere. So the next slide again, alludes to her inspiration of wanting to incorporate as much color as possible within various public art locations. Next slide. The next few slides are literally the renderings that Ms. Ray has proposed for her mural on the South Facilities building. So this is the north wall perspective, which includes the office building and women's restroom in this photo. Next slide. This is the west wall perspective, which includes the side of the office building in addition to the side of the men's restroom. Next slide. This is the south wall perspective, which is literally behind the building towards the area of the skate park. And then the next slide. These are just additional renderings of what the mural would look like. So the mural would be totally encompassed around the entire building with the intention of integrating an immersive piece that excites playfulness and experiential and ignites conversation. Next piece. In addition to more slides alluding to the color. Next slide. This is an overview of the building itself, which kind of shows you literally the wrapping around and immersiveness of the mural. Next slide. So that is the first recommendation by the Arts and Culture Commission. The alternate recommendation was a proposal by an artist named Ndubuisi Okoye entitled You Belong. This mural was proposed on one side of the building, so therefore it would not be fully immersed around the entire building, just on one wall, which would be the closest to the men's restroom. And that was proposed as an alternate. Next slide. And that concludes the presentation for this proposal. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Now, I have a question. The mural is part of, other parts of the park will also be painted in colors, so it's not like just the building that you showed us, correct?
That's an excellent question, Mayor Kasakian. So for this particular opportunity, the artists were only requested to propose literally the mural of the building. The additional aspects that you're referring to would be additional to the proposal. So if the City Council or if the Parks Commission or Arts and Culture Commission are interested in having those additional elements, that would be an additional project stipend for those pieces. It would not include the mural for this opportunity.
Any questions? Councilmember Najarian?
So can we get her to do our crosswalks?
Oh, you must have, I have that written down right here.
Sorry.
Needs to do our crosswalks.
I mean, that's kind of what we were
Absolutely.
thinking about. But I have another question. Will she give us the paint codes in case it needs to be maintained and, I don't even want to say the G word, but in case we need to touch it up in any of it?
Absolutely, that's an excellent question, Councilmember. All of the artists for any of these art pieces are required to give us a maintenance plan, which includes anything that is required for the upkeep of the pieces. So for this particular piece, the artist would be required to share color swatches, types of paint, and anything that might maintain the piece.
Good. That's good, thank you.
I really don't think anyone who's going to do graffiti on that is watching our council meetings, but maybe they are. I don't know, but sure. I know. I was thinking the same thing. I was like,
I didn't want to jinx it.
Don't plant any ideas.
I don't think anyone is sitting there with a spray can watching the live stream of the Glendale City Council meetings. But yeah, it would be good. I concur that I agree with Councilmember Najarian that we should have the paint codes and be able to, because whatever we do, even with the alternative mural, that's always a concern, especially in a frequented park setting. Councilmember Brotman, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, I have a little bit, and I have a comment, but how do we select that particular area? Because we just did the skate park, right? Mm-hmm. And we're doing this, is this part of a bigger plan, and why Verdugo Park as opposed to another park?
That's an excellent question, Councilmember Brotman. So when we were doing the Art Happens Anywhere program, those particular art pieces, including the skate park, are temporary. Particularly the skate park mural was only intended for a year. So in looking at the traffic of the park, which is highly utilized, staff and LaBasse Projects really felt that this was a high location for potential long-term public art, which is why that location was chosen.
So it would be long-term then?
Yes, this would be a permanent piece.
Okay. And then, and my comment on it is, you know, I like what I see of her work. I like the colors. I'm not sure I like the geometric forms. I like some of the other ideas, like I saw what she had for the basketball court. And then I notice it says, you know, colors and patterns subject to change. So I'd like to go ahead with her, but I kind of like to see something that's a little more like organic. You know, because we're in a park, right? There are trees. It's kind of a bucolic setting. Maybe not at the south end of the park as much as the north, but nonetheless. And you've got these very blocky patterns that, I don't know, just don't feel good in that setting. So is that something we can come back and have her do a different design that's kind of got more, it's not so geometric?
We can definitely talk to the artist about potential adjustments to the design. The design is currently as is because this was the proposal that we received, so we can't render off too much from the initial design, but we can definitely recommend that color palette that you're suggesting as a potential addition to the design.
Because I would not want to support going ahead with this particular design, but I do like her work, and I do like her colors, so I don't know kind of how you do that.
And what art school did you go to?
I have a dog.
I gave up criticizing artwork just for.
That's a smart move. Any comments? Other comments, questions?
I like her work. I enjoy art. I'm not an artist, so I'm in support of this.
Yeah, I think that it's good. It's fine. I like the fact that it's a local artist. In terms of the colors and how it's going to look, I think it will be hard for me to visualize until it's actually completed and I can see it, but I'm certain that hopefully you and staff has looked at other similar samples of the work on the scale that we're envisioning it. For me, if this is what we're going to do, I would like to see this be a part of the rest of the plan, like the basketball courts. I know Parks Commissioner Sardabagian has brought that issue up of having these types of, having this theme throughout the park, having benches that are different colors. And one of the things I like about this is that, yes, it's a mural, a very modern, obviously, non-traditional in terms of subject matter. It's very abstract, but it seems like something that will be easy to maintain, easy-ish, with the proper materials and equipment.
Absolutely.
So, I don't see why we can't, start painting and having some of these more vibrant colors throughout the park. I think it would look nice. Yes, Councilmember Devine?
Yeah, I like this concept, and I like her thinking that all the colors, it's a celebration of colors, a celebration of diversity in our city. There are some blank walls, expanses of blank walls, and I'm wondering if she could maybe humanize this a little bit with maybe a graphic on one of the walls, like children playing, or something that inspires friendliness or warmth, or instead of just being this stark wall. I think there are a couple of them. At least I know the blue one. The blue wall is really the longest, and on the south wall, just to give it a little bit of humanism, would be my suggestion. Otherwise, I think she does beautiful. I love the colors.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Councilmember Devine. As with Councilmember Brotman's comment, we can definitely talk to the artist about incorporating some warmer colors and earth tone colors, but the rendering would primarily stay as is because that was the proposal that she submitted, but we can definitely make those comments to her and recommendations to her.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll move approval.
Okay.
Second.
There was a motion and a second. May we have roll call, please?
Yes, Council Members Asatian,
Yes.
Brotman,
I'm going to be a no on this one.
Devine,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Kasakian.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Yes, and is there a second?
Second.
We are adjourned. Waiting for the council meeting header. All right, we'll call to order the city council meeting. May we have roll call, please?
Yes, council members Asatrian,
Here.
Brotman,
Here.
Divine.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Mayor Kasakian.
Here, may we have the closed session items read into the record?
Pending litigation, Glen Oaks Canyon Homeowners Association versus City of Glendale, LASC case number 22STCP0011.
All right. There is a conference also with legal counsel, or are we not doing that? Wait, that was pulled? All right, then I have an old. All right, are we anticipating reporting out?
We are not.
All right, then let's recess. We'll be back here at 6.
The